Hi, this is Alan from Alpus Group, and I'm just going to talk to you today about steel construction sustainable procurement. So this is a document which has an introduction by David Moore, the Chief Executive Officer of the British Constructional Steelwork Association, and it explains about plans to tackle the carbon-related climate emergency are in hand across industries and countries globally, and as a result we can expect to see substantial changes to the current carbon emissions heavy practices today. Sustainability will in future be a key objective in any credible procurement strategy, and failure to take that on board will surely not be tolerated by regulators or society as a whole. The steel construction sector has been focused on sustainability for many years, educating the market in the many sustainability benefits of steel, and has made a positive start to its own zero carbon journey. The benefits of steel go well beyond just carbon, encompassing the three pillars of sustainability, namely economic, social and environmental impacts. However, this publication is unashamedly focused on the latter, which is at the forefront of everyone's minds as the effects of climate change increasingly are evident. The aim of this publication is to highlight the numerous and varied initiatives underway in the steel construction sector that supports sustainable procurement. In summary, it describes what BCSA is doing to assist and encourage its members and the entire supply chain on their journey to net zero for their construction projects. The initiatives you'll read about include the 2050 roadmap that clearly signposts the road to net zero carbon for steel construction, the new Annex J sustainability specification to complement the National Structural Steel Specification for Building Construction NSSS, and BCSA's updated sustainability charter, with an enhanced focus on carbon reduction, as well as our involvement in the industry initiatives such as BES 6001, Steel Zero from Responsible Sale Steel, CO2 Zero, and what our members are doing to minimise their own carbon footprints. But cutting to the chase, the publication concludes with a set of 9 key recommendations for specifying and procuring sustainable structural steelwork. Read on to find out more. There will be sustainability-related initiatives announced by the BCSA and other steel sector partners as our net zero carbon journey picks up pace. In the meantime, we hope you find this document interesting and informative as well as useful. This is dated February 23. So the contents of the document, let's just go back, run through them. Steel answers the carbon questions for sustainable procurement. Sustainable procurement begins with proper specification. Industry-wide initiatives support collaborative carbon-reducing action. Steelwork Contractors Sustainability Charter took a global lead. Steelwork contractors deploy for climate change battle. Sustainable steel procurement. Specifying and procuring sustainable structural steelwork conclusions. So these are the sections, 7 sections. I think we need to go through anything else on this page. So steel answers the carbon questions for sustainable procurement. Sustainable procurement is destined to become an increasingly important part of the drive towards net zero carbon and realising other sustainability ambitions of governments and society. So I'm not going to read all of this text here. You can read it yourself by getting the download from BCAS. The signs are already clear. Sustainability tests feature in most procurement processes. Clients are demanding that tenderers show they're taking all practical steps to fulfill sustainable procurement requirements. The properly designed and implemented sustainable procurement strategies of the future will force entire supply chains and users of buildings and other infrastructure to focus on reducing embodied carbon and carbon emissions in construction and in use. So that's the introduction. We've got another section on an inherently modern method of construction, which of course steel is. Steel's flexibility extends building lives, so it means that you can repurpose buildings once you've got the structure up, the frame is erected, and then within this frame you can remodel the space to suit different purposes. And then the sustainability charter focuses on delivering promises. Procurement professionals will increasingly focus on what their suppliers actually do, rather than just what they say in relation to environmentally reasonable, responsible practices, and will need to be convinced that they have proper processes in place to deliver on sustainability promises. Our reliable sources of reassurance comes from the BCSA Sustainability Charter that commits members to a range of environmentally sound behaviours. An audit process checks that steelwork contractors are doing what they say they will do. Charter members formally declare that they will operate in sustainable ways that promote adding value to clients and stakeholders, optimising the eco-efficiency of the steel construction life cycle, resource and energy efficiency in steel construction through reuse and recycling, operating in a safe, healthy and environmentally sound manner, promoting respect for people and communities associated with steel construction, upholding high ethical standards. The Charter has been used to help improve understanding of sustainability among steel construction companies and to help them manage their businesses in more sustainable ways. And there's reference to decarbonisation lever, CO2 reduction, design efficiency, minus 17.5%, circular economy, minus 15%, direct steel making emission reductions, minus 28%, grid decarbonisation, minus 6.5%, carbon capture and use and storage, minus 25%, steel transport, fabrication and erection, minus 8%. And then we've got a roadmap showing steel's sustainable way forward. The UK steel sector details its commitment to a sustainable future in the 2050 roadmap in 2021, which shows how it intends to achieve net zero carbon by 2050 in support of the Climate Change Act, with substantial progress to be made by several target dates along the way. The roadmap shows how significant investments are already being made in new technologies that will reduce carbon emissions all along the steel supply chain. The aim is to produce a genuine circular and sustainable net zero carbon structural steel sector by the government's target date of 2050. Underpinning the strategy are new technologies that are either proven or at the pilot stage, that have been identified and are being adapted by steel producers. The roadmap strategy uses 6 levers to show exactly where carbon savings can be made, with significant contributions coming from improvements in design efficiency, as well as an even greater emphasis on recycling and reuse, on reducing emissions, in direct steel making, decarbonisation of the national electricity grid, carbon capture and use and storage, and further improvements in how construction of steelwork is fabricated, transported to site and erected. And then there's a section here about sustainable procurement begins with proper specification. And this is the designer's role in controlling the process, because he's setting out the design for efficiency and longevity of the structure, and using materials economically but safely and of course sustainably. The UK's drive to net zero carbon by 2050 is forcing the entire construction sector to examine its procurement practices to a more intense degree than ever before. So we go through the section on sustainable procurement related to proper specification, principles of sustainable steelwork for building construction, requirements for supply chain members, guidance for sustainable design of structural steelwork, specification for sustainable fabrication of structural steelwork, and a section here on industry-wide initiatives support collaborative carbon reducing action. The steel construction sector recognises that collaboration all along the supply chain will be needed if carbon reduction targets are to be achieved, so has joined several industry-wide and global initiatives that support sustainable procurement. And there's references here to BES 6001 is a framework standard developed by BRE Global for responsible sourcing within the construction industry. The standard is used alongside an independent third-party certification scheme that allows manufacturers to have their products certified as being responsibly sourced via an independent assessment process. And then certification to BES has been obtained by most of the major steel producers supplying UK's construction market, including ArcelorMittal Europe, British Steel, Dillinger, Liberty Steel, Spartan UK and Tata Steel. And then there's a reference here to responsible steel and Steel Zero, and this table is about responsible steel's ESG principles, so governance principles, social principles and environmental principles. And we go on through CO2 and Struct Zero, reference to an article, Steelwork by William Hare here, and Steelwork Contractors Sustainability Charter took a global lead. Procurement professionals all along supply chains need to ensure that construction products come from suppliers that can demonstrate their sustainability credentials at every stage, making a vital contribution to decarbonisation. And there's a charter evolved to meet the climate emergency. Over the page here we go on to more onerous requirements. The 2021 update has strengthened the charter with additional requirements for steelwork contractors specifically focused on the climate emergency, so members are now encouraged to measure, report and reduce the company carbon footprint, have a responsible sourcing policy, procure at least 50% by weight of steel sections and plate from steel producers with a published decarbonisation roadmap, contribute to efficient and optimised structural designs taking into account greenhouse gas emissions and the reusability of the steel structure, and to communicate options to clients, demonstrate innovation towards sustainable steel construction. These new requirements further reflect a growing need to measure and reduce carbon emissions, to promote responsible sourcing throughout the supply chain, and to encourage steelwork contractors to innovate and use their expertise through value engineering and engagement with the supply chain. There's a section here on carbon footprint measuring tools, BCSA carbon reduction plan template. Steelwork contractors deploy for climate change battle. BCSA members are serious about reducing their carbon emissions and raising their sustainability game even higher. He will look at a few examples showing the direction steelwork contractors are taking on their net carbon, zero carbon journeys. And there's an article here about green steel categorization. Vlugner Metals UK Weststock has recently launched its new Nexogen brand, bringing together the entire portfolio of sustainable products and services under the Nexogen brand. The company and its worldwide subsidiaries will be able to provide transparent carbon reduced solutions in 3 categories of material processing and logistics. And you can read more about that if you get this leaflet. Sustainable steel procurement. One of the most important considerations for sustainable steel procurement is where the materials come from and how the steel was produced. And here we explain the differences between the 2 major production processes, which have to be seen as complementary rather than rivals in the climate change battle. So there's a flow chart here of the preparation of steel from raw materials through to finished, semi-finished products. And there's another section here, steelworks to make CO2 savings with blast furnace improvements. And over the page, scrap steel is vital to both BF, BOF and EAF processes. BF, BOF production best suited for heavy steel plate girders. Specifying only EAF steel will not help reduce carbon. Produce rating system. Here the approach defines low embodied carbon steel as a function of recycled content input. Figure shows the distribution of numbers of global steelmaking sites in terms of carbon emissions per ton of crude steel production. The cluster of results to the left, up to 30% recycled content, reflects BF-BOF production sites, and the cluster to the right, nearly 100% scrap-based EAF production. So this is the EAF production, and this is the BF-BOF performance banding for crude steel GHG emissions intensity. So you've got a whole range of qualities and ratings there. Specifying and procuring sustainable structural steelwork conclusions. This publication is designed to communicate to procurement professionals and their engineering, architectural and cost advisors that strong sustainable approaches to the built environment are available now, and to illustrate how steel construction already has strong circular economy credentials that they can take advantage of immediately. And much remains to be done, of course, to achieve net zero carbon by the government target date of 2050, but the steel construction sector aims to accompany and support to supply chain and customers on their journey. And then we have a reference here to recommendations for specifying and procuring sustainable structural steelwork. Use the NSSS and follow the sustainability guidance in Annex J. Select steelwork contractors that meet the requirements of the RQSC. Select steelwork contractors who have the BCSA Sustainability Charter. Select steelwork contractors who are members of Steel Zero and or CO2 and Struct Zero. Select companies that have a certified environmental management system and a certified responsible sourcing policy. Select steel products with a product and or company-specific EPD. Select companies that measure and report their carbon emissions and have committed to carbon reduction targets. Select steel producers who have made a public commitment to decarbonise in line with UK or international net zero targets under Responsible Steel Certified and or have committed to a quantitative science-based GHG emissions reduction target. Set carbon intensity targets for structural steel based on a performance banding that includes both BF-BOF and EAF steelmaking. So that was the table that we looked at on the last page. So this is a very useful document, and if you want to get a copy of this, if you drop me an email, I'll put my email address in the description below, then I'll send you a copy of the document. And if you're interested in property development or project management, and we can help you with any of these services, then call me, that's Alan, at 07539141257 or 0333 224 1257. You can schedule a call with me at calendly.com/AlanJE, or you can just drop me an email to alan@alpusgroup.com. Details are in the description below, and see you in the next video. Cheers for now.